Christmas morning, you came downstairs and the tree was lit and the house smelled like pine needles and coffee and something else, something warm and metallic and electrical. Underneath the tree, on a circle of track laid out on the carpet, a Lionel train was running. The locomotive was pulling 4 cars around the base of the tree, and your father was sitting on the floor next to it in his bathrobe. He said he was testing it. He had been up since 5. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. The department store, that is where you saw it first. Not under your tree, under their tree, the big one. The one in the toy department at Macy's, or Gimbel's, or Marshall Field's, or whatever the store was called in your town. Every November they put it up. A massive Christmas tree surrounded by an elaborate Lionel layout that took up half the floor. Not just a circle of track, a whole world. Mountains made of plaster, tunnels painted dark inside, tiny houses with lights in the windows, little plastic trees lining the roads, and 3 or 4 trains running at the same time on different tracks, weaving around each other through crossings and over bridges and past stations with tiny people standing on the platform. You stood there with your face 6 inches from the glass and you watched the Santa Fe come around the bend with its headlight on, and the red and silver paint gleaming, and the smoke coming out of the stack, and your mother had to pull you away because you would have stood there until the store closed. You pointed at the big one. The Santa Fe, you said that one. She said, we will see. The catalog, October, the Sears catalog or the Lionel catalog itself, which came in the mail and was 40 pages of everything a boy could want. The Santa Fe F3 in red and silver war bonnet. The Pennsylvania GG1 in dark green, the Norfolk and Western J-class steamer in black, with the running board and the driving wheels, the accessories on the next pages, the operating cattle car where tiny cows walked down a ramp when you pressed a button, the milk car that delivered miniature milk cans to a platform, the coal loader, the log dump, the crossing gate that came down automatically when the train passed. You circled everything. You showed your father. He looked at what you had circled, and he did not say no, but he did not say yes. And he turned the page slowly and looked at the transformer you had not circled because you did not know you needed one. He circled the transformer he knew. The setup, Christmas Eve. After you went to bed, your father and maybe your uncle or your grandfather took the box out of the closet where it had been hidden since November, and they laid out the track on the carpet around the base of the tree. They connected the wires to the transformer. They put the locomotive on the track, set the cars behind it, and coupled them together with the magnetic knuckle couplers that clicked into place with a sound that meant everything was about to start. They plugged in the transformer, they pushed the handle forward, and the train moved. Your father watched it go around 3 or 4 times to make sure everything worked, and then he watched it go around 3 or 4 more times because he wanted to. He was not testing it. He was 9 years old again. He was the boy he had been before the war, and before the job, and before the mortgage. The train did that. It took grown men and made them boys. It could make a boy feel like a man, and a man feel like a boy. That was Lionel's own slogan. They knew exactly what they were selling. The smell, transformer oil. If you have never smelled a Lionel transformer warming up on Christmas morning, there is no way to explain it to you. It was warm and metallic and slightly sweet and completely unique. Nothing else in the world smelled like it. Not the car engine, not the furnace, not anything else that was electrical in the house. On top of the transformer oil, there was the smoke. You dropped a tiny tablet or a drop of special oil into the smokestack of the locomotive, and when the engine heated up, real smoke came out. Not a lot, just a thin wisp curling up from the stack as the train went around. It smelled like nothing else, chemical and warm and specific, the smell of transformer oil and smoke tablets and pine needles from the tree. That was Christmas morning. That was the smell of being 7 years old and lying on your stomach on the carpet with your chin on your hands watching a train go around a tree and the whole world being exactly right. The transformer, the black box with the handles, the Lionel ZW was the one every serious family had, 4 handles. You pushed a handle forward and the train went faster. You pulled it back and the train slowed down. You could make it crawl or you could make it fly, and the sound changed with the speed. Slow was a low, quiet hum. Fast was a high whine that made your mother say, "Not so fast, you are going to derail it." And you pulled the handle back just a little, and the train settled into a speed that felt right, and you watched it come around the curve and through the crossing and past the little signal tower. It was the first time in your life that you controlled something powerful. You were 8 years old, and you had a machine that obeyed your hand. Faster, slower, stop, go. The transformer taught you that you could make things happen, that the world responded to your touch. That is not a small thing for an 8-year-old boy lying on the floor on Christmas morning. The layout started as a circle of track around the tree, but it did not stay a circle. By February, your father had bought a sheet of plywood, put it on sawhorses in the basement, moved the track down there, and added a second loop, a switch, and a siding. By the following Christmas, there were tunnels made of paper mache, mountains painted green and gray, a pond made from a hand mirror, and trees made from bottle brushes dipped in green paint. Every year it grew. Your father added buildings, a station, a water tower, a factory with a smoking chimney, streets made of sandpaper, cars parked along the curb, tiny people waiting on the platform. The layout became a world, your world. A world where the trains ran on time, where the crossing gates came down, where the signals changed and nothing bad ever happened and nobody moved away. And the town was always the same every time you went down the basement stairs and turned on the transformer. The layout was not a hobby. It was a place you could go where everything worked. Joshua Lionel Cowan. You should know his name. He built his first toy train at age 7 by strapping a motor to a wooden flat car. It exploded. He grew up on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, the 8th of 9 children. His father was a hat maker. In 1900, he created a battery-powered train called the Electric Express and put it in a shopkeeper's window as a display to attract customers to other products. The customers did not want the products, they wanted the train. The shopkeeper ordered 6 more. Cowan realized he was not in the electrical novelties business. He was in the toy train business. He convinced department stores across America to put Lionel layouts around their Christmas trees. He invented the tradition you grew up with. He sold over 50 million trains. By 1953, Lionel was the largest toy company in the world. 2/3 of every toy train sold in America was a Lionel. Then, in 1959, at the age of 82, he sold the company and walked away. He died in 1965, but the trains he built are still running. Locomotives from the 1940s and the 1950s still work today because Lionel intentionally overbuilt their motors. He made things to last. He made things for your grandchildren to find. The Santa Fe. You have to talk about the Santa Fe, because the Santa Fe F3 diesel in the red and silver war bonnet paint scheme was the Lionel train, the one in the department store window, the one in the catalog, the one every boy wanted. It came out in 1948 and it became the single most popular toy train Lionel ever mass-produced. It was not a steam engine, it was a diesel. But it was beautiful. The red nose, the silver body, the yellow and black striping along the sides, the dual headlights. It looked like the future pulling into the station. And when you got one for Christmas and put it on the track and pushed the transformer handle forward and it started to move with that diesel hum and the headlight came on and it pulled the freight cars around the tree, you understood for the first time why your father loved trains. Not because of the engineering, not because of the history, but because they were beautiful, because a machine could be beautiful. The Santa Fe taught you that. The operating cars. This is the part that separated Lionel from every other toy. The accessories, the cattle car where you pressed a button on the controller and a door opened and tiny plastic cows walked down a ramp into a corral. The milk car that stopped at a platform and a tiny man came out and deposited miniature milk cans. The log dump car that tilted and dropped wooden logs into a bin. The coal loader that scooped coal from a hopper and dropped it into a gondola car. The barrel loader. The helicopter car where a helicopter actually lifted off and flew in a circle above the train. These were not just cars, they were stories. Each one was a tiny drama that played out every time the train came around the loop. You were not just watching a train go in circles, you were watching a world operate. Cargo was loaded. Cattle were delivered, milk arrived at the platform, things happened. The train had purpose. It was going somewhere and doing something, and that made all the difference. The sound, not the smell this time, the sound. The click of the wheels on the track joints, click, 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 click. A rhythm that was as steady as a heartbeat, the hum of the transformer underneath it. The whir of the motor inside the locomotive, the clack of the couplers when the cars bumped together on a curve, and underneath all of it, the faint electrical buzz of the track itself. If you fell asleep on the floor next to the layout, which happened more than once, you fell asleep to that rhythm. Click, 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 click. It was the most comforting sound in the world. It meant the train was running. It meant the power was on. It meant your father was somewhere nearby. It meant Christmas was not over yet. The day you put them away, you were 14, maybe 15. You told your father you did not want to set up the trains this year. He looked at you for a second. He did not say anything, and then he said, okay. And the trains went into a box in the attic, the track, the transformer, the Santa Fe, the cattle car, the crossing gate, all of it wrapped in newspaper and put in a box, carried up the attic stairs, placed on a shelf, and the door was closed. You did not think about it. You were 14. You had other things now. A car, a girl, a job at the gas station on Saturdays. The trains were for kids, and you were not a kid anymore. And the box sat on that shelf for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Until the day you went up to the attic to get something else and you saw the box and you opened it and you unwrapped the newspaper and there was the Santa Fe. The paint was still perfect. The wheels still turned. You held it in your hand and it was heavier than you remembered because you were 7 the last time you held it. And now you were 53 and your father was gone and the house was yours and the attic smelled like dust and old newspapers and the train smelled like transformer oil. You brought it downstairs, you put it on the table, you did not tell anyone why your eyes were wet. Then the world changed. Sputnik launched in 1957 and suddenly boys were not dreaming about being railroad engineers, they were dreaming about being astronauts. Slot cars arrived and they were faster and more competitive, and you could race against your friend. Television kept kids inside staring at screens instead of lying on the floor watching trains. The interstate highway system made cars king, and trains seemed old-fashioned. HO scale came along, and serious hobbyists said Lionel's O gauge was too big and too toyish, and they switched to the smaller, more realistic trains. Cowan tried to sell a train set to girls in 1957. Lady Lionel, a pink locomotive with pastel cars. It was a disaster. Girls did not want a pink train, and boys did not want to be seen near one. So few were sold that today they are worth thousands of dollars as collectibles. After Cowan left the company in 1959, it changed hands over and over. His grandnephew Roy Cohn took over and lost $13 million in 3.5 years. The company filed for bankruptcy in 1967. The train lines were sold to General Mills in 1969. The Lionel name survived, but the golden age was over. The trains are still made. Lionel still exists. But the market is completely different now. The trains are not bought for 7-year-old boys on Christmas morning. They are bought by 60-year-old men who are trying to get back to Christmas morning. The average Lionel collector is 54 years old. The sets cost hundreds of dollars. The layouts are in retirement basements and hobby rooms, and they are beautiful and elaborate and technically perfect. There is something a little sad about them because the man building the layout is building it for himself. His son played video games. His grandson plays on a phone. Nobody is lying on the floor on their stomach with their chin on their hands watching the Santa Fe come around the bend. Nobody except the man who remembers what it felt like to be 7. But here is what happened that nobody talks about. Some of those men, some of those 60-year-old collectors, they set the train up under the tree at Christmas, and their grandson walks in, sees it running, and stops. He stares. He gets down on the floor. He watches the locomotive pull the cars around the tree. The crossing gate comes down. The milk car delivers the milk. Smoke curls up from the stack. The boy asks, "Can I make it go faster?" The grandfather pushes the transformer handle forward, the train speeds up, and the boy's eyes go wide. For a moment, it is 1955 and 2025 at the same time. The train does not care what year it is, the train just runs, the boy just watches, and the grandfather remembers everything. If you had a Lionel train under your Christmas tree, tell me which engine it was. If your father was on the floor at 5 in the morning testing it, tell me what year. If you can still smell the transformer oil and the smoke tablets, tell me what it reminds you of. And if you set your train up for your grandson last Christmas and watched his face when it started moving, tell me about it. I read every single comment.